Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Emotional Man Weekly podcast. I am really excited to have Logan Mallory here with us. He is the VP of Marketing at Modellosity. He's married, he has 4 kids, ages 10 through 4, and he is a huge Marvel fan. You can find him on opening night watching the Marvel movies with his friends. He's also, not a lot of people may know this about him, but he's the 26th best pole vaulter in the state of Michigan. And
Not
once upon a time,
yes.
he just did 125 workouts, Karate Kid. You can find Karate Kid on his vision board. And we're just really excited to talk with Logan and really explore some of the challenges he's faced being a business leader and a family man. So welcome to the show, Logan.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here and excited to talk today. I just didn't want anyone to think I was out actively pole vaulting and couple students in pole vault right now. So that was those were my glory days.
What was your greatest height on the bar?
I don't remember. It's probably not worth saying in a podcast. I think it was. I can't remember if it was 12.3 or 12.6. Isn't good enough to get you out of high school pole vaulting.
Awesome. Well, talk to us about Modellosity. Well, what is Modellosity? What is your role in Modellosity? And maybe just give us a quick sketch of your career up to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Modellosity is an employee experience platform, and we help companies create winning cultures. The trick with that is that employee experience means different things to different people and different companies. And so Modellosity really focuses on the moments where people say, do I love my job? Do I want to stay here and keep working? Or is it time for me to quit and go find something else? And most of the time, sure, your paycheck matters, but that really revolves around, do you feel like you're a part of the community? Do you have a meaningful relationship with your boss? Are you being recognized for the work you're doing? And do you feel heard? And Modellosity has been a great place to be. I've spent my last 3 years working here. I was employee probably number 25, and now there's about 70 of us. And it's a really powerful place to spend this part of my career. I actually started out in sales, and my whole life, everyone said to me, Logan, you would be so amazing at sales. And what they really meant was, Logan, you're nice and you can talk to people. So I started in sales and spent a few years in Texas and a little bit in Seattle. And then I just realized that wasn't for me. And I got really fortunate and was able to shift into marketing and have spent the majority of the last 15 years in tech, B2B marketing. It's been a great career for me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's having those pivotal moments when you recognize that what you're doing isn't really aligned with what you feel passionate about. Those are really key inflection points. Now, so you're doing all this. Were you doing this with a family? When were you married? We know that you have 4 kids.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the kind of your family journey.
Our family journey started out rough. Emily and I tried for years to have kids and just never worked. And so eventually we went down the infertility and in vitro path and had our twins. The twins were 9 months old when we found out that nature had worked and we had one coming. So we ended up with 3 kids under 18 months old. And that was frankly a brutal time of life. I did that. I was working and switched jobs and did my executive MBA. Those 3 kids were between about 18 months and 3 years. And we waited a little bit, gave ourselves a break and had our 4th. So I feel like my 30s, though they have been great, I've also had a lot of struggle and a lot of work trying to push this career and be successful, but not at the expense of my family. I don't think I've always gotten it right, but I've tried.
Now, let's dive into that. First off, maybe explore the times where you didn't think you got it right, where you didn't think you were getting it right, and why is it you didn't think you were getting it right?
Yeah, I listen, I'm a believer in cycles and ebbs and flows. And you might get things right for a minute, but then your cycles change or your interactions with others change, and those changes create new opportunities for the ups and the downs. Let me give you an example. I always wanted to teach. I would have loved to have been a teacher, a high school teacher, but I wanted more money than that. And I did my MBA partly so that I could go teach at the university level. So for 6 years, I've been an adjunct professor at the Marriott School of Business for Brigham Young University and taught marketing and strategy courses there. And that filled this need that I had to teach and help others. It was great, and I loved it. About when I moved over to Modellosity 3 years ago, that was my first time kind of being in an executive role, and I had, some responsibilities at church. I had 4 kids, including a baby I was trying to raise. I was learning how to be an executive, and I was teaching morning classes at Brigham Young University. And I was speaking at events, like, I was going nonstop. And that came at the expense of my family and frankly, my, like, emotional and mental well-being. And I just had to look around and say, "What can I drop? What can I set aside?" And teaching was what I could put aside. Like, I couldn't stop my job. I couldn't get rid of my kids. I was unwilling to not serve in my religious congregation. And so teaching, even though it was my hobby and something I loved, I needed to set it aside. And I immediately noticed an improvement, like right away. By having fewer plates to spin, I was a healthier executive and a healthier dad and husband.
How did you recognize that things weren't going well in terms of health? I think it's so often we can get so caught up in kind of the pursuit that sometimes we become blind that we think, oh, it's just a spell, it'll get better. I'll just manage XYZ.
Yeah, this is pretty vulnerable. And I don't know if I've shared this story in a podcast or live. I was in a boat with my wife's family and my niece, and I was helping my niece learn to surf behind the boat. It was her first time, and I had surfed for a few minutes, and then I would try to hold the surfboard for her, and she'd get pulled by the boat, and I'd swim to her. And I got in the boat after, I don't know, 20 minutes or something of trying to help her. And my body had this really weird response. My jaw locked, my fingers locked, my breathing was, I don't know of a word other than dangerous. And I thought I was gonna die on that boat. I didn't know if it was a heart attack. I didn't know what it was. I told my wife, I literally said goodbye to my wife, thinking like, there's no way they get me to the hospital in time for whatever's going on. And that medical event set me on a path where I knew that I needed to figure out what was going on. And I thought it was medical. I thought maybe it was neurological. I thought it was, for a while, I thought it was this rare disease called myasthenia gravis, which means weak muscles. And after a few years of like really exploring, I had a doctor that basically said, "Logan, you've spent your whole life running on caffeine and adrenaline, and that's your body telling you to calm down." And I didn't realize this, and it sounds silly now. When I was in the boat, I literally was like, "Okay, this is it. I'm going out on a boat." And it was a panic attack. That's what it was. It was a panic attack that basically shut down part of my nervous system, and it was just the beginning. And so how do I know, or how did I know that things were getting better? They didn't for a long time. That's been a long journey for me. And it's taken me some time to figure it out. And again, I'm a believer in cycles.
Uh-huh.
So someday things are good and some days they're not. And that doesn't mean you have to panic.
I love that. I love that. My wife has autoimmune disorders
Uh-huh.
and she deals with some degree of anxiety. And
Yeah.
some days she's just ready to conquer the world. And some days it's just enough to keep the kids alive. And it seems like maybe we're talking about cycles. We experience that just in the natural day to life cycles, but to some degree, maybe more severe than others. So, how
For
did you handle that as an executive and as a father? Because, like you said, you just can't get rid of your children.
Yeah, I think I put on a really good show at work. I think I saved it all for after work, unfortunately. And so I don't say that bragging. I just think I was fortunate enough. And again, I think in all of my mental health, I still am really fortunate and very functioning. I can look back to high school and now I can realize it was depression. Then I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was lonely, and I was the student body president. And in my mind, I had convinced myself I didn't have any friends. And that's not true. It was just, I didn't know what a mental health disorder was at the time. And so I think I've been always fortunate to be able to function. And when I'm in public, I can flip a switch. Whether that's good or not, we could have another podcast episode about that, but that's my reality. I think I just was really short at home. I The best way to describe it is I just got to a 10 really fast when I shouldn't have. And again, as I've worked through therapy, the idea of cycles is really important. I've talked about up and down cycles, but the concept of I have cycles with people. My kids do something and I be like Pavlov's dog, I get conditioned to that and then I have a response. And every time they do that, I have a response and they have a response to my response. And we create these cycles. And so one of the skills that I have learned in the last 3 to 4 years of hitting my out of pocket maximum through mental health investments is that you can change those cycles with other people by slowing down and realizing it's a cycle, right? If I can stop and be mindful for just a minute to say, that's my trigger. And instead of getting mad or angry or shutting down or retreating, I can slow down and say, hey, you did this and it's causing me to act this way. And I want to change that between us. That's gone a long way in my relationships. I don't always use that language, right? I don't use that language professionally. I don't use that language, doesn't make sense with my kids, but that's been a really big tool. We can talk about that if you want. But the other thing you mentioned in my intro, and I feel like it has absolutely leveled me up. In 2023, I said, I'm going to get healthy. And I've made some massive like physical changes. And that has also been, I would say, between the exercise and the diet and what I'm consuming and learning how to slow down when I catch myself in a cycle. Those are two of my 3 secret weapons.
No, diet, exercise, in relationships. Those are massive changes because growing up, we developed some programming.
Yes, we do.
Right. And so learning how to disrupt and rewrite that programming, that's what the self-help industry is built on.
Yeah.
So talk to me, how have you gone about changing that programming? Because it can be just so easy to keep doing what you're doing, except for the exception of the pain that's causing. But talk to me, how did you go about growing into that change?
There were a couple catalysts. Again, this health issue was a catalyst. I don't want to sound like I'm a bad dad. I'm a great dad. I'm awesome. I wasn't being the dad I wanted to be. And I could say the same thing about the husband I wanted to be. And I was tired at work. And so, like, those were catalysts for me to change. The therapy made a massive difference, right? I found a therapist that worked for me. And meeting with this person has absolutely given me, meeting with this person and being vulnerable with that person has opened up doors that I wouldn't consider otherwise. One time, 2 events coincided at once. My therapist, this is weird, and I have this fear of bullies, and I respond immediately when someone's a bully. Like, I'm not afraid of them. I just hate them. And so I jump in and immediately try to stop whatever action represents the bullying. And my therapist, as I was telling him some stories about how this occurred, and I've done it with strangers, really quick story. I was in an airport and I saw this altercation start. I saw a large, strong man screaming and swearing and threatening violence at this young, what looked like a teenager. And I ran at it. I ran at it to go stop it. And then I realized it wasn't a teenager. It was a guy in his 20s that was saying unbelievable things first to this other bigger man, and who looked like the victim was not the victim. And so in telling that story, my therapist said, what were you going to do over there? What were you going to do? Beat the guy up? Like, I weigh 160 pounds. He's, what were you going to do? Stop the other guy? And we laughed together. And he said, Logan, you don't have any skills. He's, what would you have done in that situation? And he's developed some skills that could help you in bully situations. And he wasn't saying carry a gun. He wasn't saying develop nunchuck skills. He was saying have an action plan instead of just this jerk reaction to get involved. And at the same time, within a week, my wife, it was the beginning of the year, my wife put a bunch of magazines out on the floor for our kids on a Saturday or on a Sunday afternoon. And she said, hey, kids, create a vision board. Make a vision board with what you want. and I didn't have anything to do. And so I laid down on the floor with the kids and I created a vision board. And some of it was about camping. Some of it was about continuing my therapy. Some of it was about work. And in the very center of that, I put a picture of the Karate Kid in my vision board. And that didn't actually represent karate. That represented being more confident so that when I go into skill or when I go into situations or when I see a bully, I can solve it a healthier way.
Mm.
And so that manifested itself as exercising. And I've lost, what have I lost? I've lost about 30 pounds and turned some of that heaviness into muscle. I've exercised about 125 times between end of January to now. And I'm a different person physically. And my wife and I can both look at that and say, it is absolutely, I won't say it fixed the mental health problem, but it took me from one plateau and has moved me up. It
Mm.
just moved me up to a different rung on the ladder.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. How much of the intersection, because you talked about coming home with kind of the burdens of work, not necessarily the burdens of work, maybe the fact that your emotional bandwidth by the time you get home has been
Yeah,
reduced.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
And I think that's something that we all experience. If you're a stay at home parent, by the time 4 o'clock in hits, your emotional bandwidth is getting used up. So, what have you found has helped you to stay still within that kind of emotional bandwidth, or maybe widen it so that when you're getting home, you still have enough juice to be present, rational with your family?
Yeah.
What have you found has helped with that?
Again, part of it goes back to saying no. I said no to that adjunct role for a few years, and I said I can't do it. I have people that reach out to me for consulting, and I've just had to say no. And when I say yes, it's got to be I'm really expensive. Like I can't say yes to everything. I have people that reach out on LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. In fact, I hope your audience will connect with me there. I probably get, and excuse a little bit of arrogance, I probably get 30 messages a day asking for my time or my insights or if I'll check out this product. I used to say yes as much as I could. And now I say, I can't. I say, anytime I give to you comes at the expense of my wife and kids, and I can't do that. And so a willingness to say no has really helped. And I think that's the best answer I have at the moment. My wife might have something else if she was here with us that she would add, but I think saying no has helped me.
I think it's one of the saying no is probably one of the most difficult problems entrepreneurs, business leaders have.
Absolutely.
It's saying no because a lot of times I was discussing this yesterday with another entrepreneur, and it's this idea of pursuing financial freedom, generational wealth, and saying no to opportunity sometimes feels like saying no to freedom.
Yes.
How have you gone around that kind of misconception?
I am in the middle of writing. No, that's not fair to say. I am in the very beginning of writing a book. And I'm a professional speaker. I speak a lot and travel across the country and I'm speaking. And I'm working on this exact concept right now. And here's what I've determined. I have determined that our generation in particular, this late millennials and early Gen Z range, the expectations on us that have been set and that we have set for ourselves is so astronomically high that it might have become impossible for us to achieve that. I read a stat the other day and I can't cite where it was, but essentially 60% of people said the American dream is unattainable now. And as I've been like wrestling with that idea, because I don't want to give up, right? I want that independence and that success and that wealth. But I've been working on this concept of how can we just redefine success? Instead of saying success has to come when I'm 60 or when I can travel the world like my parents do, or when I have the same house my parents did, what can success look like today? And honestly, this week on Saturday, success for Logan Mallory was that I biked 15 miles. It was the exercise. That I got to call that a success for the day, and it changed my perspective. What if success for the day is that your wife so clearly knows that she's loved and that you love. What if you define that as success? Right? The concept that on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that in my title, I talk about being a force for good. And the concept I've created for being a force for good is I'm a little better and so are the people around me. And I've just decided that's my new freaking definition of success. I'm going to be a force for good. And that's my new American dream, is that I impact people for the positive. And I can do that in lots of ways, but I can do it by observing others and seeing what they're doing. I can do that by being a force for good that is resilient, and I bounce back from problems so I can help others bounce back from problems. I can do that by being enthusiastic and helping others get excited. There's a lot of ways that can manifest itself, but I'm redefining success. And that's what this book I'm writing is all about.
It's so easy to get trapped in the pursuit of external metrics.
Yep. Yep.
And it's almost like sometimes in the pursuit of success, we're searching for freedom, financial freedom, and we become enslaved to the ideal
Yes.
and we lose our freedom. And it seems like what you're trying to say here is that the external metrics of success need to be replaced with internal metric that to some degree, like
Yeah.
what is the core values? What's most important to you? And are you working on that? Is that kind of
Yes.
aligning with what you're saying?
It's exactly that. I think we let society, and I think we let ourselves, and I think we let in fact, it was funny. I was reading the American dream. When we think about the American dream, I think most of the time we think about a solid retirement, a nice house with a picket fence, and the promise of a better life. That idea was created in 1931 by a historian and a writer. 1931. So 100 years ago, we're basically defining success the same way. That guy didn't have the internet. He didn't have interest rates like we do. He didn't have social media. He didn't have the industrial revolution the same way. He didn't have 9/11, like all of these things. And we're still trying to define success the same way as someone coined it in 1931. And
Hmm.
my argument is, why can't we redefine that? Why can't the American dream be, I freaking love my wife and my kids. I have a great job that I love going to and I'm happy at. And I make people better. I'm good with that American dream. Now, that doesn't mean money doesn't come, right? Most of the time when you're happy, Clayton Christensen talks about this in How Will You Measure Your Life. Most of the time when you're happy and the intrinsic factors are being met and you're living your values and you're happy, then financial success follows. And so, to me, it doesn't have to be exclusive, but maybe we put the money first when we should have put the intrinsic focus first, and the money will come, at least to a point.
Right. It's almost the concept that success is built internally,
Yes,
and then it just by nature it follows.
you got it. You got it. That's maybe I can tie this together. That thought process that I just shared with you, unhealthy Logan 3 years ago never could have gotten to that. Right? Like the person that was struggled waking up in the mornings, the person whose mind was racing with with the anxiety and all the things I screwed up on, or I have to do better on, or I'm not solving, that dude never would have had the mental capacity to start thinking and reading and saying, yeah, it's stupid. We're still defining success by the definition created in 1931, and I'm going to change it. And so unlocking my mental, let's not say it, solving the puzzle of my mental health has unlocked this opportunity for me to be better in multiple ways at work, at home, and in my head.
So let's talk about the difference between unhealthy Logan and healthy Logan. What were some of the core beliefs you feel like influenced the unhealthy behavior, and how those core beliefs changed since then?
I don't know. I don't know that's how I think about it. I
Hmm.
think my core beliefs are relatively similar. I think my core beliefs were hidden behind static and hidden behind noise and mud and fog. And so I don't think my core beliefs changed. I just don't think I had the capacity to truly act on those core beliefs. And I would also like to say, as an asterisk, because I'm listening to my words, I am also not out of this, right? In no way do I think I have this solved or beat or completely fixed. I just know that I'm better than I was.
Mm.
And so for me, it is a continuing path. Even though I'm in a really healthy spot, I'm not stopping going to therapy. I'm not changing my medication. I still want to work out. There's still lots of things to do. So I think that's an important asterisk that I don't see this as solved. But again, the core beliefs were there. The core beliefs didn't change as much as my ability to think about them and act on them because I wasn't being weighed down by this, I don't know, these dumbbells of mental health.
Mm. So getting healthy allowed you to think
More,
clearer, better, easier?
yeah, more clearly and with more intention and with less pressure.
What impact have you seen that on your capacity to for example, coming home now, it seems like you're saying that your capacity to interrupt the cycles
Yeah,
has been increased.
for sure. I think the other things that have changed coming home, my ability to give attention, my ability to play a game with the kids. One of the and this one I feel like I'm gonna have to put on my 2024 vision board. But I put a picture of Goodnight Moon because I wanted to be better at bedtime with my kids. And so I don't know, how does that manifest itself? I turn on the Alexa, I turn on the music with the Alexa and I dance a little bit crazy and funny and play a little bit. When my kids don't do the chores that they've been asked to do, I don't feel like I go to a 7 or an 8 or sometimes a 10 as fast. I
Mhm.
feel like I can be more logical and calm in my parenting approach. And that's really meaningful. I don't want my kids to think I don't want my kids to have a bad experience, but I also don't want them to walk all over me and my wife. And so it's helped me find the better balance of being like this good, kind dad that's also able to be firm and help them learn how to be responsible adults without some of the yelling. Like, that's all there is to it.
So I want to explore. I just want to dig in a little deeper here because you said the core values were there, the core beliefs were there. You had static, inhibiting your ability to think the way that you want to think.
Yeah.
You're saying that we had these catalysts along the way that let you know, hey, something needs to change. Therapy, medication, exercise, relationships.
Yep.
It seems like at some fundamental level, you came to yourself, okay, so you came to yourself and you believe that something has to change. Then how did he go about identifying what needed to change and how? Because I
What's
feel like
it's
I think we can chase change.
Yeah.
We change a lot of different things. Sometimes we think we need to change the environment. Sometimes we feel like we need to change other people or change ourselves. So how did you find meaningful change?
I think I tackled one thing at a time. I don't think I said, I'm going to change all this. In fact, as you were listing that of things that I had changed, it's been a year and a half. I used to drink basically a 6 pack of Coke a day. And the math on that, it's 314 pounds of sugar in Coke alone. I got sick last May and I gave up Coke. And I just had a flu or COVID or I don't know what it was. And I just gave up Coke. And that one step, I think realizing the mental health was an issue unlocked the ability to go to therapy.
Mm.
Going to therapy unlocked the ability to change my cycles. Changing my cycles gave me the ability to stop drinking Coke, right? Not drinking Coke gave me the ability to exercise. You can't exercise well when you're drinking a 6 pack of Coke a day, right? It gave me the ability to exercise. Exercising gave me the ability to X. And so I
Mhm.
don't think it was, I'm going to go tackle all these things and be better. I think one key, a little bit like an escape room, one key unlocked a door that led to another room that I had to spend some time in and figure it out. And then I found a key and I got to unlock another one. And there will be 60 years worth of rooms and keys for me to figure out and unlock.
Which makes sense that your theme is just I'm a little better today.
That's it. I can be successful today. I found a key I learned more about a room. I was successful today.
I think this is a great transition to our final topic that we always like to spend some time on these interviews, and that is defining success as a family. As business leaders, we have KPIs, OKRs, plenty of metrics to identify the bottom line, growth, culture in terms of succeeding in our businesses. I think one of the challenging things is defining what success looks like in our families, in relationships.
Yeah, I love that. This is not my quote, but I was at an event the other day, or someone was speaking somewhere, and they said every time their parents, or every time they left the house, their parents said, "Don't get anyone pregnant and don't go to jail." That was the bar in their family. We laughed at that. Uh, what does success look like in my family? I will admit I have a dream, and that dream is I don't know if it's a forest or a farm in Tennessee where my kids take care of a couple animals and we don't really see neighbors very often. And there's this quiet isolation and a nice front porch to read books on. So I have that dream and it might not ever happen. And so, what would my wife and I define success as? I think we have some spiritual goals for our children, right? And how they live their spiritual lives and rallying around Jesus Christ and a savior that redeems them. We realize that our kids get to make their own choices, and we have 4 kids. The odds of us batting 1,000 isn't very high. And so, what I've tried to set my sights on as a family is that Mallory's don't quit and Mallory's lift other people up. That to me is a win. The other day, my 4-year-old, she's a cute little thing, and she'll get ready for preschool. And for a year and a half now, she's been saying, "Dad, do I look cute?" And I say, "You do look cute. What's more important than cute?" And we've done this routine enough times that she knows the answer. And she says, "Being nice and being kind." And if I can get my 4 kids to live by that with my wife, and if we can keep this family unit around that theme, I think the Mallorys will have succeeded.
I love that. Love that. Defining success by the values you live.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone, this has been Logan Mallory, VP of Marketing at Modellosity. Logan, if other people want to be one of those 30 people that contact you on LinkedIn, what's the best way they can connect with you? How can they get more of you?
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity to talk about me a little bit. Again, I'm in the process of writing this book, which is a big part of my professional speaking efforts. And if people are looking for professional speakers to come and inspire and help lift their organization, I hope they'd reach out. The very best way to find me at the moment is on LinkedIn. I'm really easy to find. If you search for Logan Mallory and marketing, I will show up and I'll have a goofy smile and a hat on in my pictures. And I do hope people reach out because sure, if you're looking for somebody to speak, I'd love to be the guy to do it. But it's a small world and we need all the friends we can get. And if I can be a resource, and I might not be able to say yes all the time, but if I can say yes, I'll say yes. And LinkedIn is the best place to find me to do that.
Are there any recordings of your previous speeches that people can find on YouTube or anything else like that?
There's a lot on LinkedIn, and loganmalloryspeaks.com is in the process of being built right this moment. I've been speaking informally, but formally, but informally. And it's time to redefine success in that part of my life as well.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, Logan, for everything you've been sharing, for everything you have shared, for your vulnerability and just opening up so that other entrepreneurs, other families can know they're not alone, that the struggles they experience aren't unique to them.
They can do it. They can do it. Figure out the escape room you're in today and find the key and just work on that one, and you can do it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This has been a wonderful week. We will see you next time.